Welcome to Getting Sketchy Live, brought to you by thevirtualinstructor.com. And now, let's get sketchy.
Hello there, everyone. Matt here with thevirtualinstructor.com, and welcome to Getting Sketchy Live. This is episode 2 of season 3 here. What is Getting Sketchy Live? Well, it's where we broadcast live on YouTube, obviously, and myself or my good friend and fellow artist, Ashely Hurst, tries to create a drawing in a 45-minute time frame. So it's a lot of fun. We try to give some instruction in there too, but of course there's a challenge there because we're trying to create a drawing in 45 minutes, which is very difficult to do, of course. So the drawing is going to be sketchy and loose, but of course we're going to have a lot of fun. And tonight, Ashely is going to be doing the drawing tonight. How are you doing, Ashely?
I'm doing great tonight so far, Matt, but I haven't started drawing yet. Thank you guys for being with us tonight.
I don't know what he's talking about. I hadn't started drawing yet.
We'll see how it goes.
So Ashely's going to have 45 minutes to complete his drawing, and he's going to be doing a special bug. And we're going to take a look at that special bug in just a minute. But if you are watching this live on YouTube and you want to be involved in the chat, there is a chat box, of course. You can ask questions and make comments, of course. And if you have a question that's directed at myself or Ashely, if you put it in all capital letters, that will help me see it a little bit easier since I'm going to be manning the chat box tonight. Before we get into things, if you like this video, make sure you give it a thumbs up. If you haven't already, subscribe to the channel. We cover a broad variety of drawing and painting materials and subject matter here, of course. And if you want to check out 3 of our course videos and ebooks for free and get on our newsletter list where you'll get updates when we add new things to the site over at thevirtualinstructor.com, there's a link for that in the description below. And we also have a membership program which has video courses, weekly live lessons. In fact, after this broadcast, we're going to be over at thevirtualinstructor.com doing a longer drawing here. We're working with watercolor pencils, and tonight I think is part 6, maybe. I think it's part 6 of our series, working with watercolor pencils. So it's definitely a slower process. All right, with that being said, let's go ahead over here and talk to Ashely for a minute. I think, did you want to say anything about the materials?
Yeah,
and things?
well, I'm actually going to be drawing with pencils tonight. I'm going to be using Kimberly pencils, but I wanted to show you guys some pencils that I've been hanging on to and been trying to identify for a few years. Matt, if you could switch to the overhead camera.
All right, we'll go ahead and transfer over.
All right, so you're actually looking at an advertisement from the Saturday Evening Post from 1926, and you can see it's an ad for Ticonderoga pencils. I'm a big fan of the Ticonderoga Pencil Company, which was actually started by Joseph Dixon, and I have that very box of pencils right here. They're kind of collector's pencils, and you can actually find them for sale online. They're not really that expensive. It's just kind of cool to have. They're about 100 years old, and the rings on the end of the pencils are actually hand-painted. You might be able to tell that some are thicker and some are thinner. So these pencils were donated to a high school art program that can't use them because the erasers are totally dry rotted. They're actually worthless to use, but they're kind of cool to look at. So anyway, I thought I would share an early pencil because these number 2, and these are actually number 2 5/10 pencils. They started in production, I think, around 1913, so we're over 100 years past that. Of course, we're going to use an updated pencil today by the Kimberly Company, which I think maybe started in the late 80s or early 90s. So quite a bit more modern.
It's crazy those ends are hand painted like that.
Yeah, well, I found out that they really weren't mass produced until about 1913, and the pencils were actually handmade from start to finish. The lead was rolled by hand and then laid into like a cedar bed.
Wow.
And then capped with the other half of the pencil. So they used to be entirely handmade. Pretty wild. All right. So I guess we can go ahead and bring up the reference and reveal the special bug. And
I think was it Margaret who had that?
Yeah, I think
somebody in the chat box already guessed what we were going to be doing here. If I can scroll up. Yeah, it was Margaret. Margaret says, I'm thinking Ashely is sketching a Volkswagen Bug. And sure enough.
That's right. So you guessed it. You get a special gold star for tonight. All right. So the pencils that I have are an HB, a 3B, oops, and an 8B. And I don't know that I'll use the 8B. It's so dark. I'm going to start with the HB just to lay out a few light lines, and then probably switch over to the 3B, which is close to an ebony pencil, pretty quickly.
So you're just going to be working on regular sketchbook paper?
That's right. This is just 80-pound drawing paper. And so it's a little bit heavier than sketch paper, and it has I guess a light to medium tooth to it. And I'm going to use a pink rubber eraser, very similar to, but not a pink pearl. Very similar to.
Okay.
All right. Well,
you ready to get started?
I think so. I guess we're ready to get started. Now, it's been a few weeks.
Okay, so Ashley's going to have 45 minutes. This is how this works. I'm going to put up a timer in just a minute. And I just want to preface this by saying that even though we're dealing with 45 minutes here for the sketch, keep in mind that this is a sketch. You know, if you're creating finished works of art, it's going to take more than 45 minutes in most cases. Okay,
that's true.
One of the misconceptions that a lot of beginners have is they see all these time-lapse videos on YouTube. They see people sketch stuff like we're about to do, and
or videos have been edited down, and you really have no idea sometimes how long they've taken to complete from start to finish.
Exactly. So just keep that in mind. And if you're drawing alongside of us, that's great as well. Just keep it loose. All right. So you ready for the timer?
Yep, let's do it.
All right. Timer up, 45 minutes.
All right. So I'm just going to start out by trying to capture the angle of the bottom edge of the car, because that's the sort of the largest edge. I like to work from big to small. So,
and Sherry is saying, "Hi, Ashley. Your image looks kind of dark. How will you manage developing a full range of values?"
Well, I do have an 8B pencil in the event that I need to get as dark as what we see on the car's door, but I'm okay if I don't get a full range of value tonight. I think it's going to take most of the 45 minutes just to sort of work up the line drawing and make corrections to the proportion. There's a lot of ellipses in here, like the headlights and the wheels, and so we'll have to see. We'll just have to see how far we get into this one. Okay, so these three lines, I'm just trying to establish the parallel relationships between the bottom edge of the car, the door where it meets the window, and what will be the top of the car. And of course, all of the contours of this car almost are curved, but I'm going to start out using some straighter lines.
So what pencil are you using? A 3B pencil right now?
I am. I started with the 3B pencil. You caught me.
And you're
Thank
keeping
you.
it kind of light too for a 3B pencil.
That's true, but I better switch to the switch to the HB. So an HB pencil is very similar to a number 2 pencil. Okay.
So those initial lines didn't necessarily determine the length of the car. They just kind of gave you a starting point.
That's right. That's right. I expect that most of the lines that I draw first, I'm going to have to correct. Now, I'm taking some measurements, just using my pencil as a sight measuring tool.
And he has the reference out in front of him.
Correct.
And he's working on an iPad there. So there's an iPad with the image on the iPad.
Okay, so I believe this is about where the door needs to start. I was just checking the height of the car and then comparing that to the width of the car from the backside towards the center. And that looked to be about the same. So we'll see how everything else lands, and may have to squeeze some parts in pretty soon.
Well, it looks like a great start so far. I can kind of see where the car is going to fit in to all this.
Okay, good. I sure hope it does.
And these beginning stages, of course, are incredibly important. So even though he's making a lot of sketchy marks here, he's really taking his time to concentrate on the relationships of the lines and shapes that he's developing here.
So far, yes. And I'm going to have to, eventually I'll start drawing some guidelines that aren't really part of the car at all, just to see how different parts line up. Since the car is tilted a little bit, it's askew. The wheels aren't directly across from each other, that kind of thing.
All right. Elena says, thanks to your drawing tutorials, I drew my first freehand drawing this week and someone bought it. Congratulations, Alana. That's fantastic.
Yeah, it's super.
It's always great to sell your first piece of art. And I think we always undersell ourselves.
It feels like it justifies the hard work that you've put in. All right, now let's see. I'm going to slow down a little bit and work on this tire and then start building out from there and making corrections. So the wheel or tire is pretty much an ellipse, and I like to build ellipses around straight lines or sort of a spine.
That's a good idea. So in the case of this ellipse, are you trying to make it equal on both sides, or?
No, not very close. Yeah, very close to equal on both sides. An ellipse is a circle tilted in space, and anytime we have something and we tilt it in space, the part that's closer to us is sometimes going to look a little bit bigger. So this side of our tire or wheel should be slightly larger than this side, and you may be able to tell the distance from the left edge to the center is slightly larger than from the center to the right edge.
All right, very good. Aaron says, I'm in a rut and I can't seem to quit practicing. Ideas?
I don't know.
I don't know if that sounds
like a good place to be.
Yeah,
practice is how we get better.
It doesn't sound like a bad rut to be in. I would just continue practicing until you feel like you're inspired to create a finished artwork. Now, of course, if you're a professional, you have to work whether you're inspired or not. But if you're a student or you're a hobbyist, then continue to practice, because it's going to do is improve your drawing skills.
Okay.
Dua W. Al Ahmad, which I probably mispronounced, said, hello. Since we're talking about selling, I'm an art student, and I don't know if I'm ready to sell or not. Paintings, I think he's saying it, or they're saying, I'm not sure if I'm ready to sell paintings or not. And if I will, I have no clue how to put a price. Any advice? Thank you. I have some advice for you, especially when you're just starting out. And that advice is to kind of think about how long you spent on the art, and then give yourself an hourly rate, and then figure out what the price of the painting would be at that point. So in other words, we'll keep the numbers nice and simple so I can do the math. Let's say you spend 10 hours on a painting, and you feel like your time is worth $20 an hour, then it would make sense to charge about $200 for that. And since you're a student, I think $15 to $20 an hour would be a reasonable rate, of course, since you're just starting out. But as you get more experience, of course, you can up that rate and charge a lot more. And if you have to give estimates to people, I used to have to give estimates to clients when I did house portraits. You can estimate how long it's going to take you to create the piece of artwork, and then, of course, charge that hourly rate. And then, of course, if it takes you less time, then you can still charge the amount that you estimated. If it takes you more time, however, my policy was always not to charge the client more, even though it took me more time to do the art. So hopefully that helps. I think that's a good starting point. When it comes to art, I know a lot of people think that just prices are just thrown on the artwork, and I think in some cases that might be partially true. But I've always taken a more structured approach. What do you think about that, Ashely?
I think that sounds pretty good, like pretty good advice. I concur. All right, well, I've got the scale relationship down between the two wheels. One definitely feels like it's farther away. In the reference, this rear wheel, probably because the car's old, is actually a little bit tilted, and I've straightened it up like it's a brand new automobile.
Maybe that back end's lowered a little bit.
Maybe it is.
To make a little bit of a better stance.
Yeah, that's probably it. I'm afraid, there comes a time, when you notice things like that in real life, sometimes if you draw them that way, they're perceived as being incorrect because they're just a few degrees off. So That's something that I would notice as an artist and change, just because I'm afraid that it would look a little bit off kilter compared to everything else if our viewer's not seeing the actual automobile.
All right.
Okay, so I got a little problem here. it looks like the tip of my windshield is too close to my wheel. So the tip of this windshield needs to actually move out. And that's what I do is I imagine vertical lines and horizontal lines to see how parts actually line up. So I need to move the tip of this windshield about to here. That probably is going to affect the front end of my car.
Yeah, it's not much of a move, just a little bit.
Not too bad.
Elena says, I just registered at the virtual instructor, excited for all the full-length lessons now available. Thanks, Elena. We're glad to have you along. And Melody says, I've been a student at the virtual instructor for several years now. We have a lot of fun during the Wednesday night live lessons, which we're going to have fun tonight, too.
That's true.
Looking forward to seeing you tonight. Looking forward to seeing you tonight, too, Melody. Well, virtually anyway. Okay, we got a question. Olufemi Allen, maybe I'm pronouncing it correct. Hey, what are some of the best ways to work on proportions? And I think Ashely's kind of showing you that.
Yeah,
right
we're
now.
talking about that a little bit now, and it's really comparing the measurement of two parts. And so I started out by comparing the height of the car to the width of the car, and that that kind of helped me capture the proportions of the back side. And now I'm working on the proportions of the front side. So, but it's pretty much comparing one part to another part. So we could compare maybe the height of this wheel compared to that one. Okay, of course you would do this on your reference and then repeat it in your drawing. And that's really the essence of proportion, comparing the measurement of two parts and making adjustments to the ratio that you see between the measurements of those parts. I hope that makes sense.
And he's also using a lot of lines to make those comparisons too. So it's okay to make marks on your surface as long as they're, if they're helping you figure out where you need to position certain objects and helping you figure out relationships between different shapes and lines that you see, of course, mark away. A lot of times folks who are new to drawing, they're scared to make those marks unless they think every mark they make, they think needs to be a permanent mark that stays
needs to
there.
be part of the actual drawing or the finished drawing, the subject.
And some of these initial marks actually just melt away into the drawing anyway, and sometimes there's not even a need to erase them.
If we get to shading, they will.
You're going to get there. You're doing great. There's 33 minutes left. And remember, the timer is just a suggestion.
That's right. I forgot.
Suggestion.
The timer is just a suggestion. Boy, I feel more relaxed already. Okay, got to be careful. This kind of business here can get me in trouble. I get sucked into little contours and details that don't make a difference with regard to the proportion, and then discover a proportional problem. I'm going to have to erase and change those anyway. So I got to be careful. I've still got some bigger marks to put in. I've still got to find my window, the fender back here. So I better work on that kind of stuff before I get sucked into the fun things, which are like the headlights and the little tiny handle on the trunk that's not a trunk at all because it's on the front of the car, that kind of thing. All right, I think my windshield may be just a little squatty.
I think, is that called a frunk?
Is it a frunk?
I'm pretty sure it's a frunk.
Oh, because it's on the front.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. All makes sense now.
Because the word trunk comes from the days when cars actually had trunks on the back, right?
You're right.
Like
they used to carry
like a
trunks strapped onto the back.
Yeah.
Behind the rumple seat, if you know what that is. Yeah. It's the outdoor seat that pops up. It's pretty cool. Okay, so I'm still pretty happy with the angle at which that I had laid those very first two lines in. So I'm just going to stick with them and see if I can start to discover a door here.
Yeah, I think it's looking great. You can really see the Beetle there.
Good. I'm super happy about that. I'm sitting down drawing this, which I'm looking at it a little bit of an angle, and that can cause proportion problems too. So because my paper isn't tilted towards me, I'm actually standing up occasionally to look down at it, and I think that's helping me. So when you're measuring and when you're judging your proportions, I would suggest stepping back or stepping away from your drawing sometimes so you can really see the forest, so to speak, and that the trees don't get in the way.
I love all the sketchy loose lines that you're drawing with too, instead of trying to be super tight with things.
Sure. Well, it's a little tentative. I mean, when you kind of go forward and move back a little bit, that is an indication of, I don't know. Don't want to say like
Being cautious.
I guess we'll say being cautious. Let's go with being cautious. So this is a difficult subject. I mean, cars are hard to draw. They really are.
They really are.
And then this one has it's organized. It's a machine. It has a lot of parallel relationships. It has symmetry. But it also is curvy and has a lot of sort of organic contours, and therein I think lies the challenge.
Yeah, I think that is difficult. I think that's very difficult. When you showed me what you were doing, I thought that was brave.
The bad idea. He said, "Oh, that's
not a bad idea. Not at all. I think it's brave. I mean, it's
well,
it's a difficult subject. Yeah,
Matt, you did a skull last time.
Yeah,
and that's pretty challenging too. A lot of little details in a skull as well. But Matt got it done, and so far we've been getting our drawings done. And I wanted to try to do a drawing that maybe I can't finish, but will require me to make more changes along the way, because I thought it might be valuable to see that.
In last season, when we were drawing the still life, we were both drawing.
Right.
I didn't finish that.
You didn't finish that one. That's right. Of course,
I didn't come close to get finished.
In your defense, you were using graphite.
Well, that's what you're using.
Yeah, but then I was using a faster medium. I think I was using pastel.
Yeah.
So mine got closer to being finished, but I'm going to say it's because my ability to cover due to the choice of medium.
All right, Chris D says, can I smooth out a textured gouache background with water on a finished wax colored pencil drawing without affecting the drawing? And it sounds like you've painted the background with gouache, which is opaque watercolor, and you're wanting to smooth out the texture with water. So I'm assuming you're wanting to add water to the gouache to the surface.
To sort of dissolve it and let it sort of maybe reset in a more even area or field of paint.
Maybe Chris D, you can, give us a little bit more information on that. With a wax colored pencil drawing, if your pencils are wax based or really oil based, they're going to resist water. So you can add water over the top of it and they're going to resist the water. Now, what it sounds like you're wanting to do, I would be more concerned about creating inconsistencies in the gouache application than I would about it affecting the colored pencil applications. So if you can give us a little bit more information, that'd be great. All right, Mary says, hi, Matt and Ashely. Do either of you sell your work? Have you sold anything recently?
I have a commission I'm working on right now. So I do take commissions, and it's mostly from people who have bought my work in the past. They'll make requests, and I'll fulfill their requests. And then, of course, I used to sell artwork more often than I do nowadays.
And I used to do commissions, mainly house portraits, back years and years ago. But both of us have come up as educators and teachers. And all the artwork I create for the last 10 or 11 years have been exclusively for lessons on the website and on YouTube. So I don't sell that work. I give it away in most cases, or I keep it. I have hundreds of artworks here in the studio, and
all over your house.
All over the house. There's art everywhere. But no, I don't sell my art anymore. And to be honest with you, since it's been so long since I have, it would be hard for me to sell art now because of the emotional attachment that I have to it. I'm somewhat in a unique situation because of the website, because of the virtualinstructor.com.
In a way, you do sell your art. You sell the process of your art.
Yeah, I sell the teaching pretty much.
Yeah.
But not necessarily the artifact. The finished result is somewhat personal to me, and I kind of have the luxury of being able to keep it. So, kind of a unique situation for me, and really kind of a unique situation for Ashely too, because he does teach at a visual and performing arts magnet high school, and but you still do commissions and
Yeah, and I used to do portraits, like oil painted portraits, a little more regularly, but have kind of just gotten out of that over the years as I've become interested in other types of art. I mean, I would consider myself a figurative artist. I still usually draw and paint and include people and
did some digital stuff for a while.
explore the human condition, I guess, through art. Yeah, I've really gotten into digital drawing and painting. Just the process is exciting.
Well, that bug is looking really awesome. It looks really great.
All right.
Your proportions.
I know it's just lines.
Your proportions are spot on. This is great watching.
Yeah, but I'm enjoying drawing. There's a lot of drawing problems to solve in here. So it is a challenge and a puzzle. It's a puzzle to solve. Just a bunch of shapes that fit together, and if they're the right shapes, then they reveal a picture, just like a puzzle.
Okay, Leva says, in the previous season of Getting Sketchy, you guys talked about your favorite artist. Do you have any ideas for this season? Yeah, we had kind of knocked around the idea of adding some kind of thing that we would do this season, like maybe pick our favorite artworks and all that kind of stuff. But what we discovered last season is we were probably trying to fit too much into an episode, since this starts at 6:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and then we go live at 8 o'clock over at thevirtualinstructor.com. This lasts an hour. That gives us a quick 30 minutes to switch out and do all the things we need to do in between the broadcast. And that may seem like a lot of time, but 15 minutes of that is actually starting the next stream. So it can get tight, especially when we go over a little bit here with on YouTube. So we decided this season we're just going to focus on creating the sketches and the drawing. But I'm glad you noticed there was a difference in this season.
Yeah, and hopefully that means that you enjoyed, us talking about our favorite artists, because we did enjoy talking about them with each other in preparation for our shows.
But if there's something you'd like to see here, you can let us know, of course, and you can always contact me over at thevirtualinstructor.com and use our contact form there. And I'll see that email.
Now, I've got where there were lots of really sketchy lines, like in here. There was probably 6 different loose lines. At this point, I'm going in and I'm starting to slow down and look not just at the movement or direction of a line, but of the specific contour. And so that's what you can see. This darker line here is going to replace all of these other ones. And so I would say that I'm starting to move into stage 2 for me of the drawing, where I refine contours. May do some shading along the way. Okay, looks like I'm only about halfway done, so I've still got 23 minutes. That's pretty good.
Okay, Dua W. Al Ahmad says, what are the job opportunities for artists/art graduates in general? I'm seeing people teaching, and that's it. Is there more opportunities other than freelancing and teaching? Absolutely. In fact, there are so many opportunities for artists right now. There are more opportunities than there ever have been.
There's more pictures in the world than there ever have been.
Absolutely. But if you think about all the things that incorporate art and design in one way or the other, it really gets overwhelming. When you talk about industrial design, that's the design of products. And this includes cars, since we're drawing a car.
That's true.
There's interior design and architecture. And my wife was an architect. She now stays at home, but she was an architect for a number of years. And then she became an interior designer and did interior design with her architecture firm. And there are app designers, graphic designers, people who build and develop websites. We've had several former students, who have worked for large companies. I know she worked for UNC Charlotte in the graphic design department and the Atlanta Falcons football team, the NFL football team. And then there's also, then there was Jay. Do you remember
That's
Jay?
Right.
And he does
he was
animations.
one of our first students.
Right. He does animations, I think, for sports companies.
And I was talking with my brother, who's an actor, and he wants to do a short film over the summer, and would like for me to do the cinematography, and because we started talking about it, and the concepts are pretty much the same. I mean, we're still talking about weight and balance in a composition and how the eye moves around, and you're still trying to tell a story with a picture. So there's some crossover in film too nowadays because of the just how the elements of and principles of art play into expressing an idea.
And another thing to keep in mind is a lot of the middlemen who used to be around are no longer, they're there, but they're not dependent on your success as an artist. These days, you can create your own website, you can create your own following, and you can sell your art through your website. This is a very recent thing, obviously. Right. I know some of you who are younger, maybe in your mind believe the internet's always been here. But, in the past 10 years, things have changed dramatically, and just in the last 10 years. So there's huge opportunities for folks.
Online comics is a thing now. People pay, subscription fees to view pages as they're drawn. So Matt's right. There's a lot of opportunity for different types of artists online, and you can create those opportunities yourself.
Bottom line, there are a ton of people working as artists and making a living. Maybe the ones that you're seeing are teachers because you're seeking out information, and that's why you're seeing those. A lot of the people who are working artists, they're not posting videos on YouTube.
True.
Makes the process go a little bit quicker if you don't.
Making a video sometimes takes longer or as long as making the art in the video.
Does.
It really does.
In most cases, it takes longer. When I make a course module, the artwork can take anywhere from 5 to 10 hours. Sometimes it's shorter than that. Sometimes it's longer than that, but very rarely is it more than 10 hours. That's making the artwork. Then I have 10 hours of video to go through and edit down and cut down. So every minute has to be watched and then edited down. So that clearly takes a long time. Then you have to go back and add all the goodies into the video and also do the voiceover. Then export the video. Now you have to do the coding.
It is worth noting that a lot of famous artists were also teachers all along the way. And one that comes to mind very quickly is William Merritt Chase, a famous American artist who founded his own art academy. So, being a professional artist and being a teacher do go hand in hand for some.
And for me, getting back to the process, after the video's made, I make ebooks for the courses.
Oh, that's
the course
right.
videos. So that is getting the images for the ebooks and then writing the ebooks.
I know that's some extra work, but the ebooks are helpful to students, I think.
Oh, yeah.
I think it's definitely worth doing.
Somebody today emailed me and said that they did either the first or second module in 25 Days to Better Drawings, and they didn't watch the video at all. They just followed the ebook.
Really? How about that?
They didn't want to disturb their husband, I think is what they did. My voice can be disturbing, especially when I watch these videos afterwards and I have to hear myself. It's cringe.
Who's that man talking in the living room? And it's you, and on a video.
Oh gosh.
All right, those rims are looking a little bit better now.
Yeah, it looks great.
Okay, and we still got we need some detailing up here in the front, and I love these little headlights. One of the headlights has an eyelid, and one headlight doesn't have an eyelid, I noticed.
Nope, fell off.
Yep, fell off. So got a little repair to do, and I might repair it right here in the drawing.
Okay, Leva says, I really enjoyed all the artists you guys discussed about because I'm not really an art student, and I loved getting to know about them. Yeah, and that's something that I personally assume a lot of the times that people do have a little bit of experience with art history, and
just because we do, you just forget that,
Right, exactly.
We're not all sharing in the same pool of knowledge.
That's
all the
definitely
time.
something that we could incorporate a little bit more into the channel and the website. That's for sure.
Mm-hmm. Just more, maybe some interesting like events in art history in general. Doesn't always have to be about specific artists. It could be about an artwork that was sort of pivotal or monumental in the history of art. Several come to mind.
Well, I'm going to mention something here, and I come up with ideas, and a lot of times I can't follow through with them. I just can't. But I've always wanted to create an interactive timeline, art history timeline, where you could go through the timeline and see all the different points. And something like this might already exist. You could see different points in history and, hover over those little sections on the timeline and pieces of art from that time period. And the artist of that time period would come up with a little bit written about it.
That seems like something museums should be working on right now if they're not.
Yeah, it'd be an awesome app.
Sorry, we had a blowout. My pencil hit the floor, but I have recovered. All right, I got my little eyelid over here, and where there is an actual cover on the light. I'd love to get into the shading in there. We'll see. And now I need to work on a repair.
So I'm just going to point out here that Ashely is 2/3 into the drawing. There's 15 minutes left. And look at how much time he spent on getting the contour lines in the right location and getting those proportions and relationships in place. So critically and crucially important.
Yeah, if we were going to paint this, or eventually I'll shade it or apply color, so much work will go into those stages. And if you shortchange yourself here with your contour lines, then all that work is not going to make up for the mistakes that remain. So it's really worth spending a lot of time on the early stages of your drawing, just so you feel like sticking with it and sticking it out.
All right, Tamira says, Matt, your 25 Days to Better Drawing has been so helpful. I want to do figurative drawings of children. Do either of you have suggestions for resources for proportions for drawing children?
Children. I think you need to just look at children and measure them.
Exactly. That's what I was going to say. There are certain procedures you can go through. What's the word? Formulas that are out there for drawing people, of course. And if you follow those formulas every single time, you're going to have something that looks like the same person every time. Every person's different.
Kind of like when a whole family goes to the same plastic surgeon, or a different family goes to the same plastic surgeon, they end up looking like a family, that kind of thing. Maybe I've just noticed that.
Hopefully you're not speaking from experience.
No,
right?
I know some people.
You know some people, really?
Just some people that look more similar than they used to.
Really? Because of plastic surgery?
Well, I guess it's probably because the idea of ideal is similar from person to person, so what people ask for. I don't mean to get off track.
Right. Okay. Yeah, I got you.
Yeah.
You're not talking about the Jacksons. That's what
No.
All right. Anyway, I lost my train of thought there.
I'm sorry. I did that.
Oh, drawing children. You just need to focus on the subject that you're drawing, and the proportions are going to be slightly different for every child.
If you want to think about maybe the difference between children versus adults in terms of their proportion, they've got narrower shoulders and larger heads. There are some clear differences that communicate a child versus an adult. So you do want to, I guess, learn to pay attention and make sure those types of proportional landmarks that describe children aren't missing.
Yeah. So you're going to leave it with one lid.
No. I'm going to put the other one on here.
Oh, okay.
I just need to get my lips in, and I'm just going to copy this one.
I got you.
Yeah. First, I'll draw it the way it looks, and then I'll try to repair it. It's interesting because you can see underneath the lids a little bit. That's why I like them. But it's a kind of a small detail.
So, are you a fan of VW Beetles?
I'm a fan of strangely shaped cars.
Yeah.
And this is one of them. You know, I recently bought a Jeep Wrangler, which is a really strangely shaped car. I used to have a Honda Element, which is a strangely shaped car. And I realized after I sent this that I am attracted to just peculiarity.
Were
I
you
think
not,
that's what.
Were you not attracted to my old PT Cruiser?
Yeah. Yeah, I was. And also, there was a period of time there where a lot of sort of old school designs were being reimagined. And I was also a fan of the Ford's reimagined Thunderbird from about, was it 15 or 20 years ago?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I thought that was cool.
Riding around.
Yeah, I thought that was a neat sort of update.
Well, when the PT Cruiser came out, they were selling above MSRP when they came out.
Oh, wow.
Can you believe that?
That's pretty rare for any car. So they were in demand.
You got the C8 right now, the Corvettes, that is going over MSRP.
Well, there's a lot in those Corvettes. I mean, that's a lot of car for.
Oh yeah, definitely
for the money, I think so. All right, so we got our lights in now, and just a couple. I got one more fog light, and then I've got about 10 minutes, and I just might shade this thing like crazy. We'll see what we can do.
10 minutes. And,
I don't know.
You're leaving out the details of the right wheel, right if you were driving the car, and the rear wheel back there, because you're going to go in and add the shadow
right.
to the entire shape.
It's dark under there. This little contour just bleeds right into the shadow. And I'm not a big believer in making up stuff if I can't see it. If I'm drawing from life, not from strictly from my imagination, I just prefer to draw it the way I see it. And if things get lost in the shadows or edges are blurry, then I'm fine with that.
And I just realized this, but this is a right-hand drive car. So this is not a U.S. car.
Matt, do you remember flipping this car?
I did flip it.
We flipped it.
You're right. We made it a non-U.S.
Yeah,
vehicle.
we did. We actually flipped this image. It was the original image. If you were to look it up on Pixabay, it is a copyright-free image. It was the car was oriented in the other direction. It was facing the other way.
That's right.
I'll tell you why I flipped it. It's easier for me being right-handed to make the bottom edge this way than to do my hand this way.
That's similar to why I flipped the skull last
Really?
week.
Yeah. It's more comfortable for my hand to make diagonals to go downhill toward the left. And I had more of those here, and that's why I flipped it. So it was purely for my own comfort level. But actually, I do like it oriented more this way. I don't know why. I read right to left. Most of you guys probably do too. And when the car was pointing that way, I just kind of read across it and I was gone. I was right out of the picture.
Yeah.
And this, with the car facing left, and I typically enter into an image from the right, I just hang out there. I meet and I stay there. And so that's compositional, and it probably only applies to people that read from right to left, not everybody around the world.
All right, you can get this to shading. And Ree says, hi, I've always drawn more realistically. Does anyone have any tips for stylizing art, especially portraits? And I would say, Ree, I would play around with some sort of abstraction if you wanted to stylize it. Abstraction is any deviation from what we see representationally. So you could break this car, for example, down into basic shapes. That's one way of abstracting it.
You could rearrange those shapes a little bit.
You could rearrange the shapes. You could, it could be something as simple as simplifying everything that you see there. I mean, you could simplify this entire car down to kind of an egg shape if you wanted to.
True.
I mean, that's a little bit extreme. You could also maybe break it down into fractals so that you maybe create some type of geometric pattern over the top and paint it with different colors in each section, but make sure that your values are accurate. That's another way to go. It's really limitless as to how you might stylize an image, and it's going to be unique to you too. So I would suggest maybe looking at some abstract pieces of art and try to figure out how the artist had actually abstracted the subject. A lot of times it's obvious, sometimes it's not so obvious. But remember, abstract art takes something from reality and changes it in some way. And that is a form of stylization. So you could argue that comic books, that is a form of stylizing a subject. There's a book out there by Scott McCloud, I think. And
The cartoonist?
Yeah, and I don't have it here in the studio. I think it's in my library, but I think the name of the book is Understanding Comics. But there is a section in that book that really breaks down the difference between realism and abstraction and how comics are really a form of abstraction. And if you don't have that book or never read that book, I'd highly recommend it. In fact, that was one of my textbooks in college, believe it or not.
How about that? I first saw it when a student brought it into my classroom, and I have recommended it to so many people since then.
Yeah. Michelle says, Ashely, I have a big old 1985 Chevy RV van. That is something that I'd like to draw.
Ooh.
Matt, I have a convertible PT Cruiser too.
All right.
Now, I don't have the PT Cruiser anymore. It went away several years ago. But when I had it, I loved it. I put moon rims on it.
Yeah,
tried to make it look
I
old.
remember those moon rims. Those were cool. Kind of,
and they were great until I'd go around a curve too fast and one rim would go rolling off at it.
You'd go one direction, the rim would go another.
Let's see. Marina says, are you having a different... Oh, this is somebody else there. Okay. Oh, yes. This question is directed at you.
Okay.
Are you having a different strategy from the vulture drawing you made? Could you apply the same approach with the car? And I think you can go ahead and keep drawing. I think the approach he's taking is different because the medium's different.
That was it. Was that a charcoal drawing that night?
Yeah, the vulture was a charcoal drawing. And with charcoal, you can kind of put charcoal on the surface and then move it around.
It's almost like painting.
Yes, it's definitely closely related to painting. And in this case, he's working with a graphite pencil, which has a more precise tip. And it's kind of a different approach. You don't necessarily start off with thinking about the shapes of value. Instead, you start off thinking about the overall shapes of the subject.
I could have shaded in a big area of value and just started working it. And went in early with my eraser to start finding contours. That's legitimate. That's true. I could have approached this the same way. I feel like, but it is a little bit of a finer medium, and so I'm just, I guess, have the habit of using it in a different way. But I think you could use the graphite in a similar way, especially, depending on what graphite tools you're using. You may have very large graphite sticks that cover a lot of surface area quickly.
Okay, Leba says, hey, Ashely, is there a reason why you made the bottom half of the car shadow with horizontal strokes rather than vertical strokes?
Oh, yeah, because it's a horizontal plane. That's a great comment. Thanks for asking that. Yeah, I think you mean these underneath the car. And I know the road is a little bit, it's not totally horizontal. Maybe lines that go directly across the road would actually be a little bit of an angle like this. But I wanted to keep the strokes flat so the ground feels flat.
And Melody asked, Ashely, did you add a steering wheel or is that the windshield wiper? That's the steering
wheel. I haven't gotten... Oh, you noticed it doesn't have any windshield wipers.
And James Bond says, is this my Aston Martin DB5? No, it's not, James. And if you were truly James Bond, you would know that already.
That's true. All right. Now, there's a lot of chrome on here and some shiny places. Oh, my gosh. There's only 2 minutes.
2 minutes.
Holy mackerel.
Just a suggestion. Just a suggestion.
I'm hesitant to shade too sketchy after spending all the time on the contours. But I'm just, I'm just going to cover this thing. And then we're going to use our eraser in here a little bit.
Are you still working with the same grade of graphite?
I switched to a 3B.
Okay.
Just coloring it in.
Just covering it.
I'm just going to color it in.
Completely.
Oops, not that spot. And then I'll go back and dig out lights with my eraser in 30 seconds and put in some darks in about 30 seconds.
The timer is a suggestion.
That's right.
Take your time. We still got plenty of time.
We may go a couple of minutes.
It's 7:19 here. Now Now people will know the delay because I said 7:19.
Oh,
They'll be
yeah.
like, no, it's not. It's
Yeah.
7:21 or something.
That's right. There is a little delay because I have a potty mouth, and Matt has to edit
I've got
me all
a
the
button
time.
here to shut him down.
Right. Shut my sailor talk down.
There's a beep button somewhere around here, which none of that is true.
It's true. My grandfather was a sailor, and he never cursed. Is that what you're talking about?
No,
sailor?
I'm talking about, you don't have a potty mouth?
Oh, my potty mouth. Right. I
Yeah.
don't have one. I'm just kidding.
And I don't have a button to stop it. Well, I do have a button to stop, but it stops everything.
Okay.
Yeah, so take your time. You still got plenty of time.
Reset that clock.
Maria says, do you guys think you guys could try a video with drawing with your opposite hand?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
You sure can.
Yeah, I've done that before.
Because, drawing happens in your brain, not in your hands.
That's true. But there are some fine motor skills that are involved in getting what you see on the paper.
Oh, there wouldn't be any details.
It would be super loose.
Right. It'd be really sketchy. That's a good idea. Okay.
Oh my, Leva says, I loved all the previous sessions so much. I didn't sleep all night to catch this one live. And now it's 6 a.m. here. Oh.
Oh, wow. Well, thank you for being here.
My gosh. I feel kind of bad. I mean, that's great. But thank you. Thank you. That's awesome. But get some rest when we're done here.
Yeah, go back to bed.
But I know I can't sleep sometimes and for no reason.
Oh, time is up. Time is up.
Oh, it's okay. We'll have that little timer.
Please.
Pretend it's not there.
Let's put a little shine
Keep going.
back
The drawing
there.
is looking great.
A little shine back here, maybe.
We'll get some contrast going on in there, and it's going to pop. You got a lot of middle values and
too many middle values, but
there's a lot of midtones
get some
on
nice
the car.
darks in here now.
Oh yeah. Frida says, you are such a cool guy.
She talking to you?
I don't know who she's talking to.
Well,
Probably not me.
one of us thanks you.
Whoever the cool guy is says thanks. It's not me.
Okay, good.
I'm the least cool person in most situations.
Well, I got a little shade happy there. And outside of my windshield. All right, and we'll just
Srini
put some
sends us love from Trinidad and Tobago.
put some dark marks up there. We'll call those windshield wipers.
There you go.
All right.
I know why you drew a Volkswagen. It's because you
A Volkswagen.
a Volkswagen. I can't do it.
A Volkswagen.
There you go.
I've been-
You speaking German.
I'm trying. I've been
Yeah.
practicing German on my own for about 2.5 years. And so I'm working on immersion. And so I've named my cat Klaus. I'm drawing a Volkswagen. And I always tell my kids good night in German. And they don't like it, but I'm getting better. I'm getting better.
My kids don't like any of the stuff I do. I think that's par for the course. How do you say goodnight in German?
I say, es ist Bettzeit. Es ist Bettzeit. They hate that. I don't even know if it's correct.
That sounds a little bit like you're telling them not to let the bed bugs bite.
Don't let the bed bugs bite.
The bed bugs bite.
The sentiment, I guess, is
Buzz
similar,
bite.
right? Yeah, Bettzeit.
Oh, Klaus de Haan. I'm probably mispronounced. It said it looks like a German name. You are doing a good job at German.
I am so. Oh, that makes me feel great. That makes me
is
feel
a great
great.
compliment.
I actually kind of tweeted with a fella I saw who had a really sweet Motorrad, and I was asking about his motorcycle, and so it was the first time that I actually tweeted with a native German speaker, And it was so exciting. So I'm only now starting to use German just a little bit. And it's like a whole nother world. It's like a whole nother, it's almost, to me.
It's like a whole nother language.
Well, we're Americans. And so what that means is we don't learn other languages.
Right.
So if those of you that grew up bilingual or live really close to other countries and interact with those people a lot, this may not seem familiar to you. But to Americans, learning a foreign language makes you feel like a superhero. It really does.
It does.
It really feels like an unusual and odd skill for us.
And I'm agreeing just because I think it would. I know a very small amount of Spanish. Let's see. Blue Jean 55 says it's bedtime is what you said.
Yeah, that's right. That's what I tell my kids. It's
Right.
bedtime. Okay.
Lots of
I
folks
guess that's
saying,
about
"Great
it.
job."
I guess that's about it. It's as far as we're going to get. I have worn out my welcome with going past the timer, I think. But I'm pretty happy with that. It's got a nice integrated feel. It's loose. I enjoyed, at least in the end, pulling out the eraser some. I didn't get to the shading as soon as I had hoped, but I was wanting to pull out some of those highlights and chrome marks to draw with my eraser and not necessarily be just so careful with my pencil and work around those lights.
Well,
So-
I love it. I think it looks fantastic.
well, thanks, Matt.
And
I appreciate that.
Such a difficult subject, too. Such a difficult subject to try to tackle in 45 minutes. And you got that shading in there. In 10 minutes, you did that. That's fantastic.
Yeah.
It really looks great.
10-minute
for the
shading job.
Short amount of time that you spent on it with such a complex, difficult subject. I really commend you for.
Well, this used to be how everybody had to collect the references. Before the days of high quality photography, you had to move fast and decide what was important to you, what you were going to capture just before the light changed, before you ran out of time. So it's not all in there, but I got what was important to me.
Well, very good. All right. Well, I guess we'll switch back out over here. Well, Ashely did a fantastic job, of course, over there. I hope all of you enjoyed it, and thanks for watching this live. And I'd like to remind you, of course, if you are new to the channel, you haven't subscribed yet, make sure you subscribe so that you can catch all the videos that we put out, of course. And you can check out 3 of our course videos and ebooks for free. There's a link in the description below. Ashely, got anything to add to all that?
I'm exhausted, and I think I'm ready to watch Matt draw for about an hour over at Virtual Instructor. So come on over there with us, and we'll give him a hard time while he's on the chopping block.
Yeah, tonight I'm going to be continuing with this image here, and I had planned to show it to you, but I guess you'll have to wait. We'll show you next week, I guess. But I'm working with watercolor pencils, and we're getting along there. We're almost finished with the image, actually. I'm really pleased with how it's
Yeah, it looks
along.
great.
Well, thank you. So if you want to join us over there, it's part of our live lessons program. If you haven't, if you're not a member, we start everybody with a free trial for a week, so you can go in there and check it out, see if it's right for you. I'll see those of you over there in just a few minutes. And if you want to check it out, there's a link in the description below. All right. I think that's it.
All right, we're out.
All right. Good night, everybody.
See you guys next week.
Thanks for watching.